So, hello everyone. Welcome back to the AHP Preceptorship podcast. So, we are really delighted to be welcoming our next Preceptee. This is a wonderful Sarah who works at Harrogate District. Was one of our first Preceptees we actually signed up from Harrogate District as well. And we are, it's great to be welcoming on more dietitians onto the podcast as well. So, without further ado, please introduce yourself, your profession. I think I've already done that, and a little bit about where and when you qualified.
Yeah, so as you said, I'm Sarah and I'm working at Harrogate District Hospital now. I'm in the acute setting, so all things wards. I qualified not last summer, the summer before. And yeah, I went to Leeds Beckett. I did the undergraduate BSc in dietetics from there. So I've been working now for just over a year and a half.
Amazing.
We always really love to hear not only where people studied, so obviously you studied in Leeds, but also like what led you down the path to becoming an allied health professional, because not many people get a lot of education around those job roles, especially when we're in school. So what kind of started you on that journey to where you are now?
Yeah, so this is I was a mature student, so this is my second career. I was a professional dancer for 10 years, and then I always wanted to retrain, and at first I wasn't sure exactly what in. So I started having a look at what might interest me, and just from the dance side, kind of the body was a really a really big interest of mine and how it works. And I liked kind of the science side of things. So I didn't have any science background, any science A levels. So I did an access course at the University of London to get kind of my base sciences there. And I kind of felt that I was leaning towards dietetics, but I was also looking at physiotherapy. So it is a slightly different way of looking at the body. But I also have celiac disease, and I was diagnosed when I was a teenager, and my mum's got it as well. So I did see a dietitian when I was a teenager at York Hospital, and only once, but I do remember the interactions with them, and kind of that it did really help me at the time. And then there's a lot of misinformation in dance as well, and I just wanted to learn what the actual facts were, what's the evidence, and what's the right thing to be doing. So yeah, it was a lot of unlearning as well as learning on the dietetic course, if I'm honest. But it was so a bit of a, I don't know, maybe a different route in being in my 30s.
It tends to be the way with AHPs. It's kind of like a wiggly route, and you know how they end up there. But it's really great to hear that you've kind of taken that passion that you had for dance and thought about, how can I look at, still look at dance, but look at other elements that also kind of interact with that. And you led you down the path of being a dietitian. I like how you were, thinking, should I do physio or dietetics? You're kind of working it out. But also then you kind of had that lived experience of that dietetics role, which is also great. And that's how we've spoken to a lot of preceptees, and they tend to have that lived experience with, actually having some experience with one of the AHPs, and that's why they've gone down that route.
Yeah, I think there tends to be a lot of dietitians have, an allergy or an autoimmune condition or something. I think just people that I've worked with, if you think about the percentages in the general population, it just seems to be higher. But I think it's because, it's something you're thinking about in your everyday life anyway. So you kind of do have to take an interest in it. And then it's looking at, well, what help would I have wanted, or what help, might I be able to give people from my experiences, kind of like you said.
I think that's really important as well when you said, there's lots of misinformation, because we also had another preceptee that was a professional dancer, a ballerina, I think, and went on to become a physio because she was also saying the same thing around that. Like, there's just lots of misinformation. It's quite can become kind of toxic in certain environments, and she really wanted to learn more about what's really important for the body in order for her to do it for longer as well. So
That's really interesting.
yeah, definitely. So, lovely to hear about your journey, and we're so glad that you did become a dietitian, and welcome you to the AHP family.
Thank you.
But we want to hear a little bit about your first post now. So just talk us through kind of, obviously when you're newly qualified, there's lots of thoughts and emotions that go on, especially in the post-COVID world. So how were you feeling in your first post, and what were your kind of thoughts and emotions?
So because of COVID, we didn't have our A placement like we would normally, because it was in the height of the pandemic. So because A placement was more about just watching and observing, we weren't much use, and it obviously wasn't the priority at the time. So I didn't get to go into a hospital until I was on my B placement. So it was quite daunting. And then by C placement, I started looking at where I might want to work. And the job came up at Harrogate, and it was a band 5 to 6 progression post. And yes, when I went for the interview, it just kind of clicked, and it just felt right. And yeah, it seemed like a really nice team and a nice place to be, I think. So that's why, it just kind of felt like the good kind of place to go next with my career and where to start. So when I started, obviously it was very overwhelming. Again, everyone was lovely, so that really helped. But they had been quite short-staffed, and they were good at kind of easing me in, and I felt like I did have the support there to kind of guide me through, the first few months of, what is this, what am I doing, and kind of that jump from student to band 5, where suddenly they say, yeah, you go and see that patient, and you're like, you're not following me. No one's following me. And you suddenly just, nobody's behind you anymore. And I just remember that first one, actually thinking, no one's going to follow me to do this. But I did have that support.
I love that. Sorry, I love that you say no one's following me.
So true. It, don't you? It quickly kind of picked up pace, and then once I became confident with seeing patients, it was then in at the deep end, and because of the different teams, there was issues with staffing. So then, because it was a 5 to 6 progression post, I think it was quite heavy in expectations, which I like. I like pressure, but it was a lot. I think when I started, Harrogate weren't part of the Preceptorship programme. So I didn't start the Preceptorship programme until the June. So I was kind of 9-ish months into my post by then. And I think it would have been really nice to have had it at the beginning. But glad that I had it when it came.
We got to you eventually. Yeah, we got there. We got there in the end. And just wanted to kind of reflect on what you were saying at the beginning there about how when you went to your interview, it all clicked into place, because as much as they are interviewing you and anyone going for, that job, especially your first one, not only are they interviewing you, but you need to make sure that you're kind of interviewing them. Is it the right place for you and the right fit? And obviously, it's so lovely to hear that everything clicked into place for you. And as you said, I know preceptorship came just a little bit later. 9 months had kind of passed, and how you wish you'd had that earlier. When you did start to access preceptorship, how do you kind of feel like it supported you with all of the challenges, especially what you said, about they hadn't been fully staffed, and all of the experiences that we're all aware of the NHS kind of going through? How did preceptorship support you through that?
It was really good. I think one of the first sessions that we did was with the other Band 5s from Harrogate that were in different AHPs. And some of them I was like, oh, I recognise you from this ward or from that ward. And, you know, it was that, oh, well, you know, maybe we can chat about it. So across professions as well, to actually have those connections with other teams in the hospital, that we are all one team, but you might not get to know people in the same way. And to know that actually, because you see the professionals around and you assume that everybody has been doing it for years and knows what they're doing, but actually seeing someone and thinking, oh, you're a bit like me though, like we're still figuring this out, like we know what we're doing, we're qualified, we're competent, but actually you might have some of the same thoughts or feelings that I'm having at the moment. And I thought that was really good from kind of the start of it, I guess. And I think we've had a couple of conversations as well that I wasn't getting much time out of clinical just because of patients and waiting lists, and because it's new for me. I kind of hadn't quite got into the mindset of, but there's always going to be more patients. So you actually just still need to put in that protected time. In my head, I was like, oh, but I need to get through them. And I think preceptorship really helped me to pencil in that time. So whether it was the meetings and talking to other people in the same situation, or whether it was the time when I was trying to get some of the competencies looked at and finding the evidence, it gave me time to step back and actually kind of look at what was happening rather than just be in it. And although all the stuff from uni you remember, it's good to just come back to, especially some of the topics that we had in some of the sessions, you know, where you talk about documentation and things like that. And sometimes when you're just patient after patient, although you're doing it safe and you're doing it properly, it's looking at, well, why am I doing it like I'm doing it? And just checking in with yourself and actually checking that there is nothing missed and you are doing the most effective job, and kind of reflecting on practice really.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I think that's been a big bit of feedback that we've had recently, is that stepping back and just taking time to kind of have a breather, think about what you've done that month, because you do so much, in the first 1 to 2 years. You're absorbing so much information, aren't you? You're just like, wow, that, this week's been a lot or this month's been a lot. So it's so important to sit and digest, give yourself that space. Like you said, there's always going to be patience at the end of the day. There's always going to be patients you need to see. But you're never going to be going through like 1 to 2 years post-qualifying ever again. So it's so important to one, like you said, connect to your wider community of the other Band 5s. And it is something just so simple of, recognizing faces. Like you said, you're walking past each other every day. And when you first start, you think, oh, everyone knows what they're doing in this hospital. Everyone's competent. And it is just reassuring when, we do simple things like the polls, when we say, who faces imposter syndrome? 100%. You don't feel alone in those thoughts and feelings. And also what you said about the university, like we learn so much at uni, we can't possibly retain absolutely every word that's said to us or being taught to us. So it is important to refresh on certain topics, and now that you're living and breathing the work, rather than maybe doing a bit more observed practice with your your supervisor at uni. It's actually like, you're the accountable clinician. So it's so important to really consolidate that learning. So we're really happy that you've had those reflections with preceptorship as well. So obviously preceptorship is now a huge topic for AHPs, which we're so happy about, and it's been recognised on a national level. Do you feel that having access to the programme, I know it was a little bit longer, a little bit later on in your journey, but we did tweak it slightly. So we did just the 12 months only, which is great. But do you feel like, looking back, that it helped kind of retain you within your post or your profession, to help kind of maybe give you strategies around, when there is, challenging times or maybe kind of staffing issues? Was it reassuring to hear maybe that other trusts and other teams were also going through the same thing?
It was definitely reassuring. Yeah, it was a difficult year, kind of my first my first year. There was a lot going on, and like I said, I think I was just so focused on the clinical, seeing the patients. It was quite overwhelming. And so actually, yeah, like you said, having people to talk to that are going through the same thing in different trusts or in different places, it is that kind of you're not alone, but also, yeah, like I said before, the importance of having the time to step away and actually like prioritizing is a huge thing, but actually saying, okay, safe practice, who needs to be seen, what are the priorities for today, and some days that is going to be 100% clinical, and those patients need to be seen that day, and maybe things need to be rescheduled. But other times, maybe the priority for that day is to do the AHP meeting and take those couple of hours, or to do some competencies, or to do some clinical supervision. And I think it really helped me to try and try and make sure that I am taking that time that is really important as a professional, as well as for like retention in the profession, me feeling happy in my job and kind of happy overall, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a really huge thing. And, yeah, everything that you've kind of touched on about preceptorship, and, especially as we adapted it for you, it's so important to access that, because you never know when you're going to need to prioritize a meeting. As you say, patients are always going to be there, and you're kind of embedding some of those skills through preceptorship that you're definitely going to need further into your career. But also, this kind of leads me on to my next question, where I feel like I am going to know the answer, but because your profession is, small dietitians, it's a small profession. I know you kind of touched on it, and how you mentioned it in, that kind of potential retention. But, it's a small profession. Being part of that wider community, not just of other allied health professionals, but as you said, kind of getting to recognise people and thinking, oh, you're in a similar boat to me, and the more national kind of community, was that a really valuable part of the preceptorship process for you?
Yeah, it was. And one of the weeks, I think we did, I don't know if it was a Kahoot quiz, but we did a quiz, and there was other people in the trust that were doing it as well, and one of them won. But yeah, it's kind of just being a bit more playful with it, and having that community side of it just makes you feel like you've still got that community. Because at uni, as a year group, you have other people to turn to. Oh, what did you do for this? Or I'm finding this, how are you finding that? And I was lucky that I did start at the same time as another dietitian, so we did have kind of someone else that was in the same boat, but still, that's only two. It's nice to widen that out, and to actually just connect when otherwise you wouldn't really have the opportunity to. So and I love a quiz, so.
Oh yeah, and as you say, that's like such an important part of the community. We like to. It's not all serious. There's really important elements, but you've got to have fun, because otherwise, all of the pressures that we experience day to day could easily get on top of us. And we love a healthy sense of competition, don't we? With a little quiz, fastest finger first on the quiz.
Absolutely, that's definitely come out as some of the Preceptee's favourite element, those quizzes. And then just talking about the portfolio, so as we said, you just completed the 12 months. What would you say you're kind of most proud of in your portfolio, like a standout competency?
Yeah, so thank you for letting me do the 12-month ones, because I know I was later coming to it, and I think there'd been kind of a meeting with yourselves and the preceptors to discuss what would be most beneficial, I guess. So yeah, I think there's a couple of things, but looking back at it, I think the ones that I feel helped me most with my confidence as a band 5 to 6 dietitian were the ones where I could get feedback from, or I asked for feedback from people I was working with in the team. So for I've written it down here just so I didn't forget. It was the demonstrates independence in prioritizing and managing clinical caseload. And again, I think I was just trying my best to get through things, and I was struggling with prioritizing for quite a while, because I was just like, I need to see all of these patients, and actually just sitting down with a few people and going through how to do it. And then it got to the point in my my practice, I guess, where I was starting to do it more on my own. And there was a point where I was in an office with some people from some different teams who were supporting us in the acute side when we had less staffing. So I did end up kind of having to prioritize for all of us, I guess. And yeah, I asked for some feedback. I asked for kind of a witness statement from, from someone else in the team, just to find out, I guess, how I was doing with it all. And it's just so nice to get that feedback. I feel like a lot of the time, just in the NHS and the way that it is, it's all about what can we do better, what can we do more of, how can we see more patients. And there's sometimes a bit of a lack of, oh, I'm doing that quite well. Or like, oh, that's going okay, actually. Like, I'm nervous about it, or I don't maybe feel that confident, a bit imposter syndrome-y. But actually, the feedback that I'm getting from my team is positive. And I think that was a big confidence boost, and a big, oh, right, okay, maybe I do know what I'm doing. Maybe I can do this. So I think that really helped.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I think that was like what you said in your sign off. You really valued that observed practice and that feedback element, because we can get, supervisors, teams can get so busy, can't they, that they just come in and they're kind of a bit on autopilot. They go see their patients. But with the preceptorship and the competencies, it kind of gives you like a, hey, like I need evidence for this. Like, could you maybe provide me with a bit of feedback? And you've also got to observe practice as part of it as well. And it kind of just gives you the voice to say, I really, just a bit of feedback would be great. And what a huge impact that's had on you. Something so small, really, in the grand scheme of things, has really, improved your confidence. And
it costs nothing.
Yeah.
It costs nothing to give somebody feedback like that,
yes.
does it? So
I was also supervising the diet, someone in the team, and I asked them for feedback as well, and that was really nice to hear as well. Just kind of that being kind of a supervisor, that side of it.
Absolutely. Like what's
kind of going well, I guess.
Yeah.
Just that reassurance of, no, you're all right, you're doing okay. Don't be so hard on yourself.
Yeah, I never did that when I was a supervisor, and actually it's really valuable to know what is working well in terms of like your supervision with them, and maybe what they need to see more of from you, or maybe there isn't, but it's really really important, like that feedback loop. And you're instilling this from being newly qualified. You're going to carry on now doing this for the rest of your career, and it's great that Preceptorship has kind of really aided that for you.
Yeah, definitely.
So
and hopefully then I can give other people feedback, because I know how valuable it was for me now, so I can actually understand more about, well, obviously when I was a student I did anyway, but making sure that they get the feedback that they need and that gives them the confidence, and just taking the time to do that for people.
You will absolutely pay it forward, I'm sure, because it's obviously such a standout point for you that we usually supervise others how we've been supervised. And I feel like, as Felicity said, you've really embedded this and reflected on this early on. And I feel like you're going to carry that forward through your career. And obviously you'll adapt that feedback to that individual and, you know, what they need. But I think you're right. It's something that within the NHS, we're so quick to go, this could have been done better. But you've already highlighted that that was a really key aspect for you, especially within the portfolio. And I just feel like you're 100% going to pay that forward in future to students and people you supervise and just other members of your team as well. Because I think sometimes that you 100% will. For you to reflect on it and be such a pivotal part of your preceptorship. You know, I think it's just so nice when sometimes like a colleague says, "Oh, like great job today," and like you're like, "Oh, thanks." You know, that really means a lot. And it's, as I said earlier, it's free. You can just compliment someone and say, "Yeah, well done." And it's
even
so
just
nice.
a couple of words. It doesn't even need to be a big reflection. Just well done.
Yeah.
Great job.
Yeah. Means so much. So thinking about obviously your standout competencies were with that feedback, and the other aspects of preceptorship that you've said, if we had to ask you what your favourite part of the whole preceptorship process was, can you pick one?
Favourite parts? It's difficult because, like I said, doing the quizzes and getting to know the other AHPs was a big standout, and I think it was really good, especially in the ward teams I was working in that I was trying to develop relationships with. But yeah, I think it. I don't know, feeling a bit more kind of vulnerable with the team and asking for feedback, and just it helped kind of to get to know the team a bit better, or feel, you know, I guess a bit more confident in myself. So I think they're probably the main ones.
It empowered you, didn't it?
Yeah,
really,
exactly. It just made me kind of take ownership and be like, no, I can do this, and I am competent, and I am a dietitian. I can do this. Because at first, like, you feel like you're just putting on an outfit and pretending, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh no, wait a minute, I know what I'm doing here.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you value that external source of support from the programme? Because obviously we're not within your trust. Did you feel that you could kind of voice those concerns quite freely because of that?
Yeah, we'd had some conversations about, because I really wanted to have the observed practice, like when someone does follow me around.
Yes.
I wanted someone to follow me around again and say, yeah, no, you're doing it right. And I think I'd spoken to you about that, and you'd said, about, just approaching my preceptor and asking for kind of what I needed and what I felt would be beneficial. And I think having other people to talk to about it really did help. So I think that was really good.
Good. So now just thinking about those that are now coming into post as newly qualified, we love to hear what your top tips are for those.
Top tips. Don't put too much pressure on yourselves. I always expect a lot of myself, and we can't be perfect all the time. Ask questions. Ask all the questions. Nobody's going to mind if you ask questions. They'd much rather that you did than felt like you didn't know what you were doing and you felt like you kind of were alone or weren't able to kind of voice that. So speak to people, talk up, ask for what you need, and ask questions, clinical ones, but also just whatever it is that you need. Make sure you're kind of speaking up, because I think I don't know, I don't want to put it on other people, but I felt like, oh well, I am a dietitian now, I've got this qualification, so I need to show that I can do it all on my own and that I do know it. I need to show them that they've hired someone that can do the job. And yes, 100%. But also, we are still new, we are still learning. And the only way we're going to get better is from learning from people who have that experience and gaining that experience ourselves. So using those people that have been doing it for 15 years. Like, how incredible is that as a resource? Like, what would you do? Ask them. Yeah. So I think that would be my main thing. Ask, and just don't be afraid to speak up.
They're great top tips.
Absolutely. And not putting too much pressure on yourself. That's a huge one.
Yeah, that inquisitive, but be, with the balance of, you're not going to know everything. And as you say, we are all guilty of putting that uniform on and being like, oh, they've employed me. I have to be perfect at everything. So, yeah, I really love those. Thank you, Sarah. I hope that, whoever's listening, I hope that they can really take those on board.
Mm.
And then the question that we always love to end on is, would you recommend preceptorship to other newly qualified professionals or professionals going through that kind of career transition?
Definitely. Like I said, I wish I'd have had it from day one, if I'm completely honest. Yeah, I wish I'd have had it from the beginning. I think there's an element when you are so busy that you're like, oh, it's another box to tick. It's something else I've got to do. And I think that was a concern of mine when I started preceptorship, and I voiced that to yourselves. I was like, oh gosh, I'm already really busy. How am I going to fit this in? But actually, like I said, in the end, it just showed me that actually it's really important to have that time to reflect, to do the CPD, to get the feedback, because ultimately that will all make me a better clinician. In the end, it'll make me a better practitioner and a better dietitian. So yeah, definitely.
Yay! Woohoo!
I would have been so sad. I would have been so sad if after hearing all of your feedback, you went, actually, no.
Yeah. And ultimately, that is something that we, when we sign up to the HCPC, we say that we're going to keep up to date with our CPD. So I always say it's killing two birds with one stone. You're doing your CPD portfolio, but also preceptorship at the same time and giving you that structure. So yeah, and again, that real importance around you need to sit down and work on your development as well and focus on yourself. I think that's a really important message. So thank you, Sarah. Did want to, ask if you wanted to share your social media handle as well, so that others listening could give you a follow.
Yeah, so I started an Instagram when I was a student dietitian, and I've started another course in sports and exercise nutrition to kind of further develop myself and like link my dietetics back to my dance. So kind of, yeah, that's an aside, but my handle at the moment is my dance dietitian. Just while I start to grow a bit of a community on there to find other people that are interested in dance and dietetics.
Yeah, amazing. And we'll share that when we post the episode as well, so people can give you a follow. I think that's a really important, thing that you're doing, incorporating your real passions and loves into your work as well.
And as you said, like getting that little community together, another little community of practice of people with similar interests. And we love a little bit of social media. We think it's really important to be able to network with others. So we're going to be really interested to follow your journey through that as well with what you share.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, as a student, it was so helpful as well, I think, connecting with students from different universities. So anybody that is in that journey, if anyone's listening, I really did find that helpful as well. It was like almost, like when preceptorship, you meet people from the different trusts, it's like that, but with people from different unis. So I do think that it was a really good thing to have.
Absolutely. We always go on about that, don't we? In the meetings, Hannah, we're like, you should set up your own social media channels. It's a great way to network and you hear what other people are doing. And it really is. Like, I wish I had gotten on like Twitter much earlier in terms of like a professional account, because so much on there. Some really good resources, amazing, knowledgeable people talking about, their expertise, and lots of free webinars that you can link in with as well. So yeah, I'm glad you also found that useful. We'll have to maybe get you to do a day in the life for us or something as a dietitian.
definitely let me know.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be great.
I'm keen.
Yay. All right, so is there anything else that you wanted to say? Because obviously this is your podcast episode, to anyone that might be listening before we round up.
There's nothing springing to mind. Just if there's something you want to give a go, I'd suggest just to go for it.
Yeah.
And not be shy to ask for support and help, and put yourself out there, really.
Absolutely. Right. Well, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us again. You're not going to be a stranger. We'll, continue to link with you, and hopefully you'll go on to become one of the preceptors as well. So then you can,
Definitely.
help those that are newly qualified. But yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure supporting you, Sarah. And we're really excited.
Thank you so much for all your support.
Oh, of course. And we're so excited to see where, this takes you. We'll be following you still on your socials.
And we're going to get that day in the life out of you. We've locked you in now.
Yeah, well, you've got my email. You know where I am. So, but yeah, thank you so much for inviting me on. I've really enjoyed it.
All right.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Bye.